What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
How's it going?
And to my left, Zachary Parks.
Yo.
And our special guest, Chess Hall, joining us on Skype from Florida, the United States.
Hallelujah.
How's it going, Chess?
What's up, guys?
Hey, great to have you on. So in case you did not know, Team Chat Podcast is a video game podcast where we talk about games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do that by sending us an email at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com, following us on Facebook, Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and subscribing to our YouTube or iTunes channels. If you want to support the show, you can do that as well by going to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show, and in return, we will give you a cool perk like getting the episode early before its general Tuesday release.
Every Tuesday.
But if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine, because we'll keep making the show week after week, giving you great gaming content.
We're slowly. That's 2 weeks in a row that you've kind of fudged it, buddy.
Why you gotta
What's
point it
going
out?
on?
Why you gotta point it out?
Are you sick?
Damn. Why you gotta waste my flavor?
It's just so noticeable now that you've been doing it so perfect for so long.
I don't know what's wrong with my head
That was
days.
95% perfect.
95%. All right, 93%.
It's an A minus.
It's an A minus.
Still at the end your day. Still getting that.
So as of this recording, nobody has correctly guessed last week's song contest, which the hint from last week was given to us by Mogan, which was "Cool guys don't look at explosions."
Boom.
So which game was it from? We'll just go ahead and talk about it.
Really?
Yeah, because by the time this airs, the contest is over.
Oh, well,
So,
that's true. Oh, what a surprise. It's from Uncharted. Yay.
So we were talking.
So
about
you just pretty much picked it because we were talking about it, right? No
So
real
I was
special
like,
reason to your
surely
heart.
If
someone
no
will
one gets
get
this,
it.
I think this will be a very obvious case against the song contest.
Exactly.
Obviously, if somebody won it,
Take it to court.
if somebody
people
won it, then
versus
we'll
the song
I'll
contest.
jump in and throw in their name and all that stuff.
yeah.
But as of right now, it wasn't. But the game was Uncharted. Stick around to the end of this episode, and I will have a hint and song for this next week's contest. All right. So, Chess, thanks for coming on to the show. Obviously, it's great. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got into gaming and all that?
All right. Well, yeah, my name's Chess. I have a podcast coming up real soon called +7 Intelligence. And I'm a typical gamer, maybe. I've been playing games for a very long time. My parents kept me within the educational game bubble for a while, but I eventually burst out and started playing pretty much any game I could get my hands on. Been sticking mostly to PC gamers because my parents wouldn't let me have a console.
Hey, same.
Yeah,
Jared's story.
I make it work. You know what I mean?
Very nice.
And so I just really love games. I love talking with people about games. And one thing that I really like to do is I like to challenge how people think about games. Because if you're a gamer and you play games all the time, then what you think about games kind of impacts how you think about yourself and how you think about your life and your place in this world. So I like to talk about those kind of things and like to hear other people's stories.
Very cool. Very cool.
I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is that what +7 Intelligence, your show, will be about?
Yeah, more or less. I call it the show about how games impact people. So it's kind of the premise of the show is that a lot of us treat games and the real world as two completely separate things. But something that I've found in my digging and my way through the world is that video games are having real impacts on people's lives and on culture, on people individually. It can be something that's, emotionally significant to someone, or it can be something even more tangible, something that inspires them to make a change in their life. And I think that a lot of those stories kind of get brushed over, but I think they're really significant. And so for the show, I try to interview people who have an interesting perspective of how video games have affected the real world. And so I've interviewed everyone from game designers, a psychologist, a counselor, teachers, all sorts of people who have used video games in interesting ways or had video games impact them in interesting ways. I'm really excited about the conversations that are happening.
Nice. That sounds really awesome, man.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
Would you say that a lot of the conversations that are going to be brought up in your podcast, do they tend to be more for a positive spin towards video games? Or is it a balanced field? Or like what is... Because I'm getting a sense it's more of like a positive aspect of what video games can do for people. Is that true?
Yeah. So I definitely take the position that I want to talk about the positive things simply because not really that many people are. And maybe they are, but they're not really tapping into a lot of the interesting stories that are out there. They don't know about all these other people who are creating video games with the intent to help people, and they don't know about all the other people who have been inspired by games. So I kind of wanted to collect that stuff. But it is true that I want to be balanced in the sense that I don't want to, I don't want to only be positive and turn out the negative, because in my life, I've definitely had a love-hate relationship with games that sometimes they've been good for me, sometimes they've been bad for me. Sometimes it's completely unclear. So I want to be honest about that. And a lot of people are in the same boat. So that's what I want the show to reflect. But yes, I definitely want to emphasize the positive simply because I don't think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Well, and because I still think there is a stigma of gaming and the gaming culture that people, especially people who play games, are having to overcome still today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who still view it as a waste of time,
Yeah.
still view it as just a hobby, and there are now plenty of people out there making it their job. I mean, we're doing our small corner of it by doing podcasting and stuff like that, but we've also been all players for the majority of our lives. But all the way out there to the esports people and all that stuff. But it was really cool. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on is because I feel like our goals and missions with our two podcasts is very similar. When we started this show, one of the big things that we talked about is that we wanted to talk about more than just the base level of games. Like, oh, we like this, we don't like this. Explosions, like we were saying before we got started, explosions are cool. I like shooting stuff in games and all that. But really pouring a little bit more into it, like some of the things that we've done in the past, like role models, character deaths, or even music and art direction, stuff like that, to bring a bigger awareness. And one of the things, like I say in some of our descriptions, is that video games are just as big and just as viable in an art form as movies, books, TV, all that stuff. And I think it's getting to the point where the world is beginning to realize that in a more major way.
Yeah.
But, here we are in our little corners of the world doing our thing to try to make that the big view of gaming.
And what excites me about this idea that you're going on, Chess, and what we have touched on but haven't fully delved into is our personal experiences and relationships. Like we talk about games, how we feel about them, and sometimes we do get into like how a game has affected my life, for example. But I've never told you guys like how what Halo means to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How have we never talked about that?
I've talked about why I love Halo and like why it's a good game, but I've never talked about what it means
well,
to
then
me.
hold on to that.
as a person.
Just come out of the gate with that stuff.
Because it's like a huge part of me.
Right.
So like, I think Chess, like, it sounds to me like that would be a topic that would be at the forefront of an episode for you, like what a game like means to me in my life as a whole, rather than just like why I like the game.
Or how Halo impacted you.
Yeah, how
changed
Halo
you. Made you hit those leaderboards like it does now.
You gotta wonder, how did it come to this?
Yeah, you must wonder what
happened to this poor
person make. My goodness,
Chief was trying so hard to steer you down the path of righteousness.
Well, so before we get into the main topic of everything, one question we do like to ask everybody is, what is your favorite game?
Totally loaded question.
I have to say, my favorite game is Portal.
Oh, good choice.
That is a great choice.
That's a game that I always come back to, always think about. And there's so many things I could say, but the main thing about it as being a favorite game, or kind of the perfect example of a game, is that, Portal as a movie, maybe it would have been cool, but not really that great. As a book, not that great.
No.
But as a video game, outstanding. Is the only way that you could really, feel the impact of, thinking in 4 dimensions. And it's a perfect example of how video games can do things that no other medium can. And the execution is great. It's a short game, but There are more quotes that come out of that game than probably any other. And it's just great on every front. So Portal continues to capture my imagination.
That's an excellent choice.
I thought about Portal for our topic today. I think it's pretty obvious one. I mean, it's just on a surface level about problem solving. That's a very easy in for like, what have video games taught me? Problem solving. I think it's a very base level, like beginning starting point. But yeah, Portal was a big one, or one that I definitely thought about a lot. And it's up there with one of my favorite games too. I absolutely love Portal.
I just played Portal for the first time actually earlier this year. And I remember you weren't kidding about the duration of it. Because
Jared was like, I'm still in the trials.
And they're like, no,
that's the game. That's it. He was like, I'm still in the lab.
It's like you're always in the lab.
Well, just because it was numbering them, and I thought it was still just like the tutorial part, but silly me. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, the game. I'm actually like almost done with the game then. Okay, cool.
That's all right.
All right. Well, Chess, since you are the guest, you brought the topic for us today. So why don't you go ahead and introduce what that is and what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the time.
All right. Well, the topic that I wanted to bring to you guys to talk about was the idea of what games have taught us. I think that's a really tangible way that you can point to, or at least start to point to, the impact that games have had on your life. I think, in my opinion, I think that games teach us a lot more than we feel like they are, and only if you start drilling down into it, you'll realize how much information and how many skills and even like soft skills, sometimes personal skills, like if you're working with other people in a game. There's just so many skills and ideas and experiences that you get from games, and we don't often really talk about them as teaching us something, but I think they do, and I think that it always leads to an interesting conversation when I bring this up.
Awesome.
Cool.
Sounds great. So what would then, to get us started off, what would be like something that a video game has taught you?
Well, I like to tell this story that when I was 12, a friend of mine introduced me to the game Runescape, which, if you're not familiar with, count yourself blessed. I mean, it's fun, I guess, but it was definitely in the old RPG tradition of extreme amounts of grind. It was one of the biggest browser MMO games, and I was very much obsessed with it. And it's so much so that my parents banned me from playing it. And
we've all been there, buddy.
And I still found ways that I could play it, and I would go behind their back and I would sneak around. And, from my parents' perspective, this game was so obviously a bad influence on me. It was, it was convincing me to lie to my parents and go behind their back and all this stuff. But I think if my parents saw what I was actually doing in the game, they might have a different perspective, because what I was actually doing in the game was I was literally mining for coal days in and days out, because I had this master plan for making millions of gold coins. And when I couldn't play the game, I would be on the wiki and I would go through their spreadsheets of experience tables and gold tables and all this stuff. And I came up with this system that I could make all this money and stuff. And, all those skills that I was learning, I would go to a different server to get different prices on stuff. All those skills, that was setting up a business. In a very literal sense, I was, getting a resource, sometimes refining it, changing it, the value of skills, literally the value of skills, that if my smelting skill or my smithing skill was this level, that's kind of like having a college degree. So what I can produce is more valuable. And this was something I did in my spare time. Obviously I was a pretty nerdy kid anyway, but still, this was how I chose to spend my time. And that experience and, all those concepts of supply and demand and, trying to find my niche market of all that stuff, that's all skills that I learned. And it was all, when I could steal 5 minutes here and there, when I could sneak down to the library and not get caught playing a game on their computer and all this stuff. And that's what I chose to do with my time. It wasn't what you would think about with a game, with the excitement and all that. I was drawn in to play this game and I learned all these ideas and skills just naturally. And no one had to force me to do it. I just did it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a great anecdote.
I know. I wish my first game that I played that rewarded me with such things. But
maybe it did.
Maybe it did.
Maybe the point.
And you're just not thinking about it critically enough.
That's possible.
It's very possible.
I didn't learn enough.
I had a very similar experience to that in not RuneScape, but Halo, and that's a game that I'll be talking about a little bit today and every day.
As prefaced before.
Yeah. And
this episode of Halo, Chief goes to the mines. Gonna do some coal mining.
But what just struck a nerve with me was I had a moment in high school where my parents were like, we are getting rid of your Xbox.
Oh no.
We are Mom. How am I gonna play my games? We are getting rid of your Xbox. You play it way too much. It's all you do, blah blah blah. And I was like, I had a real crisis, obviously. And I was like really like, at one hand, I was like, are they right? Like, do I play too much? Is this a bad thing? On the other hand, I'm like, they don't understand what I'm doing. And when you said that your parents were like, they knew you were playing RuneScape, but they didn't really know what you were doing, that's how I felt about Halo. I was like, if my parents could get in my shoes and actually experience a game of what's happening, I think they might have a different interpretation of what I'm actually gaining from this.
Yeah.
And I've said this before with that time period, which was maybe late middle school, early high school. I was playing a lot of Halo 2, and this is when I was getting into competitive gaming. And my life is really broken up before and after competitive, like Halo. Like before Halo, I was playing like Rainbow Six, like racing games. I was playing a lot more like different variety of games. And then when I got into competitive first-person shooting in Halo, I obviously pursued it as hard as much as I could without trying to actually become a pro. Even those were thoughts that I did have. But competitive Halo was teaching me, and I didn't realize till later. I really like you said, Chess. I really didn't realize all these things that I'd learned till later. But it is the type of critical analysis you have to do in order to win or in order to make plays or anything like that seemed to me equal to what I did on a tennis court or what I did on a basketball court. Like there didn't seem any difference in mental capacity needed in order to perform well than a great sport.
Because you got to be able to think ahead, know what you're going to do, anticipate a movement, and all this other stuff.
And so there's all that stuff. And then when you have 3 other players that you're talking to, your team, that you have to play with a lot and know what they're doing and let them know where you're going to be at. And then this teamwork comes into play, and then the map knowledge comes into play, and combining all these different attributes or variables was like amounting to this really fast-paced game of chess, and it really felt like a very high. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably amping it up a little bit more than it needs to, but it felt highly intellectual. I was like, this is hard. Like, in order to do well, you have to. And like players that I play with that didn't do well weren't thinking fast, didn't know the map, and like couldn't really understand what the team needed versus what they needed to do. And that mentality, and that maybe that's a separate skill that I learned, was teamwork. And that was a big one too, is with Halo. But before teamwork was just a very like kind of base level of not, I don't want to say like mathematical skills, but certainly intuition and developing a sort of making the connection between the brain and the hand like seamless. You know? So yeah, I mean so if my parents could have experienced that, I do believe they would have been like, oh, that's why he does this so much, because it's so fun. A, it is fun, and B, it's challenging. Right. There's a lot of like really good challenging games out there that challenge players.
And I feel like that entire dynamic is kind of one of those things that society as a whole tends to not quite understand, or even in some cases demonize, because a lot of people look at competitive online gaming and go, it's just a bunch of douchebags yelling at each other. And it's like, no, there's actually a lot happening there that you have to understand. And especially if you are on a formal team. Like if you have an actual team that you interact with on a regular basis, you do learn a lot about interpersonal soft skills, like Chess mentioned. You know when you do have to push harder, and you learn when you have to pull back and when you can't push someone any further.
Yeah.
Right.
You learn those types of boundaries. And honestly, I don't really see a difference in learning that person to person, face to face versus learning it online. I think that as long as that person is electronically present with you, you're still getting the same amount of skill.
And you can probably attest to this. Anyone that's played online gaming, when you're playing an online game, you're there. Like I don't feel like I'm like really in my. I'm in my room playing, but I'm like I'm in the.
To the extent that if someone else is also in the room, they're not really in the room. I'm in a different room.
You can't even talk to me.
You're no, go away, go do your own thing.
And these are, I mean, Halo is like obviously the game that I played competitively, and I'm pretty sure that's small potatoes compared to like League of Legends and these other games, which I think are even more complex and difficult, and the variables even get higher, right?
Right. Because there it's like I mean, I know you can have roles in Halo, like you can have somebody if they get the sniper rifle, they're the sniper right then. But there are in games like that, they're definitely the ones who are like the tanks who like or even the same as like in Overwatch. Yeah. The heroes in Overwatch all do different things. They all have their specific role. You have to know how that role benefits the rest of the team. So I mean, that's what I was going to jump in on too, is just the critical thinking aspect of it. More than anything, I would say, is what really jumps out from what a game is taught. Similar to you, Chess, I couldn't have consoles growing up either.
Poor nerds.
I was able to
so deprived.
I was able to have a computer, which I was able to play, and exactly. And so I was able to play the computer, and on that, same as you, it was all the educational games like the
Jumpstart fourth grade for the win.
Word muncher.
Operation Neptune from the Learning Company. Did you ever play Learning Company games?
That sounds familiar.
I can't think of anything else of theirs.
Dude, they made a lot of stuff.
They made a lot.
The Learning Company was all over educational gaming. Learning is fun.
Operation Neptune is the one I played a ton of.
What about Math Blaster?
Yeah, Math Blaster.
I hated math. Really, Math Blaster made me hate math.
Well,
I think that had the opposite result.
I just want to be good. I don't want to have to do calculations.
Math Blaster, Number Muncher. I don't think they made that.
Number Muncher. I played Word Muncher, but that was an English thing.
I was good at Word Muncher, terrible at Number Muncher.
Mavis speaking typing had all sorts of little games in it.
That's true.
Had to type fast to destroy the asteroids that were coming after spaceships. I was terrible at that game, but it made me a good typer. So I learned typing. There we go.
It's a real skill.
Real skill
world.
that's needed in this world today. But the one that really stood out to me that I really learned from, and where I learned the critical thinking stuff from, was for the Civilization series. So turn-based strategy game. And that's one that is similar, not quite as in-depth. Well, maybe there are probably people who get into it as in-depth as you did with RuneScape, but just like you can really pour over the stats, and the amount of things that you can just get into with that game is ridiculous. And especially as you get into the harder difficulty levels, the different types of victories that you can have, and how your units will benefit, and what improvement on this specific land tile will do what. So it very much gave the critical thinking thing, but also for me, because I already liked history a lot, it also greatly improved my love and wanting to find out more about these civilizations and countries that I was playing as. I mean, I would...
And that's not even an intentionally educational game, but it then inspires you to go on and bother to do your own research out of sheer interest, out of actual genuine interest to learn about that thing because of something you experienced in the game.
Exactly, because you can start the game as, George Washington of the Americas, but you're dealing with swordsmen and spearmen and stuff like that, stuff that America had no part in history at the time. So it's the progression and growing and all that, which again, but like you said, you do have to learn how to balance your economy with your science, with your, X, Y, and Z to get the outcome that you want. But it also, because the civilization that I would usually play as was Persia, and because they had this really cool military unit that I liked. And so, but that also got me more into like learning about these ancient cultures of Mesopotamia and the Middle East and all that. So I think it did that for me. Call of Duty similarly did the same because of World War I, the first game, or not World War I, sorry, World War II. I already liked that. I already loved, reading about that. I'd read books on D-Day and obviously you'd seen Saving Private Ryan, but still, it was just another way to get into this time period in this area that I liked, and it made it feel more real than just sitting there and reading a book, even though it was a fictionalized version of events and had things that didn't actually happen, but it was still based around specific battles, specific places, and a specific time period. Yeah. So for me, games have really increased my love of history and finding new things.
Yeah.
Even if that history is a little warped, for example, maybe you're in 5th grade and you're taking history tests and you're like, who did George Washington fight in the Battle of blah, blah, and you're like, the Persians probably. It's like, no.
Likely.
Yeah. And so yeah, so I mean that would be the thing. But that was an interesting point is like how all of us. Well, although I don't know Mogan, did you face any backlash from parents over gaming?
Oh yeah, no, I got the internet timer put on me.
Oh really?
I could only be on the internet for a maximum of 4 hours per day, and I was like, how do I get around this?
4 hours, that's not bad.
Yeah, right. You would think so, but as a child, I was like, this is unbearable. Yeah, exactly. It's 9 o'clock, and you're like, I don't have to go to bed until 9:30, Mom. I need another half hour.
I thought the years would have been a little bit more lax because your mom played games.
Yeah.
No, well, really, I think what it was is she wanted the computer, and the only way to get us off of it was to set the timers, and it's like, we're on you, Mom. You can't stop us. And then, of course, I would get grounded a lot for unrelated things because I was bad at school. And it'd be like, no GameCube for you. And I'd be like, oh, you have to go to bed eventually. So
I would wake up at 3 a.m.
Wake up at 3 a.m. to play my games. You can't stop me, Mom. So that was kind of how it was for me as a kid, but by and large, they didn't care. Yeah. Our parents would pretty much let us play video games more or less as long as we wanted to, but that was because we also lived in a very social neighborhood. So it's not like all we did was stay indoors. We did have very active outside lives beyond video games. So I don't think it was a primary concern that they really had.
What's something you learned from an early game?
So fun fact. So one of the main websites that I was on a lot when I was younger, do either of you or do any of you remember Neopets?
Neopets.
Neopets.
Like the
do
little...
you remember Neopets? Yeah.
I had a Neopet.
Do you remember? So
those are the ones that you was it online or was it the one?
No, it was online.
No, it was online.
I'm thinking of Tamagotchi.
No, not Tamagotchi. So it was.
I'm thinking of Tamagotchi too.
No. Neopets. So it was wrong, fools. So it was basically just a website, and you would get on, and you would have like your profile, and you would basically adopt a pet. But they were all these like fictional, just little virtual pets. They didn't even really do anything at that time. The internet was so young. Yeah. They were just 2D pictures. But like you would name your critter. It had like certain amount of HP. You could feed it. It could starve, like not to death, but it could be like, yo man, you haven't fed me in 5 days, what is happening here? And I'd be like, I can't afford food, okay? You have to give me a while. So this is actually a really good example of, at that time, a website that had a lot happening in it in terms of they had a lot of mini games, which is like the video gaming aspect of basically just things like Snake and Pong and those types of games that would enable you to earn in website currency. But they also had a lot of different layers that you wouldn't expect. I learned, and I know at least a couple of other friends that were on that website with me, learned how to do the stock market before we really understood what the stock market was because of Neopets.
Wow.
They had an in-game version of the stock market, and you could invest in it, and you could see how your investments did, and you could either gain or lose currency in that way. And then as an adult, I was like, oh, that's a real thing. They're talking about the real stock market out there. So it was a really interesting aha moment of, wow, they really snuck financial savvy in under the radar to a bunch of kids that genuinely did not know what they were doing, but now they kind of do.
How many of your friends are on the stock market now? Are you on the stock? Have you sweeped up any sweet stocks?
Actually, no, we just talked about this because I mentioned that one of my big stocks I found out was primarily in EA and I was horrified. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. So yes, I am in the stock market, sir. My investments do reasonably well. They're sound.
I make sound investments.
They're not exponential, but they're sound investments.
I have a fallback plan.
Exactly. I have contingency. I have diversification. That's the thing you learned in Neopets. You got to diversify. You can't put all of your coins into one stock. You got to diversify. But that's just an example of one of the things that was one of the primary sites that I was on that prompted my parents to put the timer on the internet. They were like, you spend too much time on that website. And I was like, no, my stocks. If they had known it was all about stocks. But that's really not what I was going to predominantly talk about.
Yeah.
In terms of what I've learned from video gaming, I feel like this is actually one of the more recent things, like recent being within the past 5 to 7 years, I would say, of my life at least, is a more social construct, and it is both a pro and a con.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older and as I've become more aware of a lot of the social constructs in gaming culture, I feel like I have learned significantly more about feminism and how it fits into gaming culture, and often how it does not fit into gaming culture. And that is both a pro and a con. And a lot of that has to do, again, with online gaming. I could very easily exist in gaming in a bubble and never play online games and thereby have my own experiences and make of what I will of my own opinions of that and never have to branch out. But once you do get into more of the online gaming, for better or worse, you run into a lot of different things. And a lot of that is very much being sidelined as a female gamer, being downright abused and harassed as a female gamer, and others is it like, oh, hey, cool, we have one girl on our team now. And it's like, that is both a pro and a con.
Right.
And having those experiences has made me more aware of what feminism as a whole really is. Like, this is just one facet, but I have been forced to learn a lot more about what my own thoughts and feelings are on this and what my own opinions are on how women fit into gaming culture as a result of coming up against all of these different forces that are frequently negative. So by and large, a lot of my online interactions are not especially good when I choose to actually use my voice in gaming, and sometimes they are okay, but a lot of the times it's not. And that has forced me to be very critical of the media that I consume. And in a good way. So it does force you to think a lot more deeply about what your own coping mechanisms are. Because sometimes you can't just turn the game off. Sometimes somebody says something or does something and you're like, why? Why would you do this? And
it sticks with you a little bit longer.
And it sticks with you, even more so than you want it to. So having to develop those kinds of coping mechanisms and reasoning and strategy is something that I have learned as a result of gaming.
Interesting. Very cool.
That maybe you may or may not have also experienced.
I mean...
yeah, I think kind of similarly, the idea of when you're playing an online game, getting exposed to different cultures is a really big deal. I had a operations group in a game that, one guy was from Canada. One of the ladies was a farmer in the middle of nowhere, and some were from DC, and then just random people along the way, meeting people from whatever, Germany and Netherlands, and like the idea that we're playing a game and you have no idea where these people are from, but the game provides a platform where you have a common language. Hey, I don't know much about that guy, but he's a good DPS, he's a good healer. Or maybe like me, I'm a decent DPS, but I managed to get myself thrown into acid pits in the middle of fights. But it starts a conversation with people across the world, and exposure to different people and different cultures is a really great thing.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's funny. I don't normally, when I play online, I normally don't use my microphone just because, and especially too if like Sam's here or other people or other people are around, like I don't want to be on that, and then just it's like, what? Oh no, not you, the game, kind of thing, and all that stuff going on. So I normally don't, but every once in a while I will if there's a particularly like chatty group on Overwatch or something like that, who are really trying to make that effort to come together and play as a team. Which I will say, one of the greatest moments or greatest feelings is when you are playing with a group of completely random people, never met, never talked to each other before, and you do just have that clicking moment where everybody works together completely cohesively. It's awesome. But I was playing Overwatch the other day, and this one guy was being kind of chatty, and like we won the rounds, then we did that thing where you could stay in for the next stay as a group and all that. So I was like, I'll talk to this guy. Yeah. Let's see what's up. And turns out it was during the Uprising event that had just happened.
Oh, okay.
And this guy had gone out. He'd heard about it enough. He went out, bought Overwatch, and then also bought... What was he telling me? He was like, oh man, because he wanted the Genji Voltron skin, and he was just like, I haven't got it yet, and I'm really pissed. I spent $150 on this game. I'm like, how'd you do that? And he's like, man, just a college student, just chilling, man. I got my summer job that pays me pretty well and all that, so I didn't have a lot of time, and I'd heard so much about this game, and so I went out and bought it, and then I bought like $100 worth of loot boxes.
Wow, $100 worth of loot boxes, dude!
But it was totally fun. Like we added each other as friends, and so like I've seen them on, and I haven't had a chance to play with them again. But it was still just one of these like random things, and this funny story of just like somebody trying to get into the game for the first time and just experiencing it. And like it was fun that I got to be along for the ride that little bit of time.
Yeah,
and we joked about
funny.
like how we never get what we want from the loot boxes and all this other stuff. It was a lot of fun.
When Chess was talking, basically you had a monologue about online gaming, and that sounded like straight out of like an advertisement for online gaming in like 2002.
In 2002.
Like when it first came out, the potential, the beauty, and that's how I felt when Xbox Live came out. I got it very quickly, and something I learned from just Xbox Live and online gaming, besides this teamwork and stuff that I got from Halo, was meeting people and socializing and understanding cultures better. And I had a really good friend from Wales, Saif Alani, was his Xbox Live name. And I was, 12 at the time, maybe, somewhere around then. And he was probably like 28 or 30. I had a lot of older friends on Xbox. Well, yeah,
that's the kind of thing that you hear on Dateline NBC.
And you go like, you laugh.
Chris Hansen walks in. Sir, we need to talk.
Yeah. Take a seat. Take a seat. No.
Take a seat.
It is funny, but like we were good friends.
Yeah.
Me and him were really good friends. I mean, we would stay up. I used to stay up with him, a couple other guys all night, and we wouldn't even play games. We would just talk. And I'd be like, "What's it like in Wales? What's the weather like?" And he's like, "What's it like in America?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's great." Like it was this really
Fun times.
utopia-esque feeling of logging on to Xbox Live. Everyone was like, "This is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. I can't believe I'm talking to these people from different cultures."
Right.
It really did get that sense. I made so many new friends in the first year of Xbox Live because everyone was so excited that this was even possible. And so that was an early thing that I got out of video games that definitely translated into my life, was like a sense of community. The online community in the gaming community now is very different, I think, than what it was. It used to, for me, like feel like a very sacred, like no one knows about us sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten to a point where it's like there's like fractions within the gaming community, and not everyone likes each other a lot. And there's a lot of stuff like that, which is unfortunate.
I mean, those Xbox players, am I right?
I'll kill you. That's my reaction. But it is. I do think, this is a different topic now, like online gaming and how it's changed, but I do think I got a lot out of early online gaming. And the people that I still play with are the people that I met within my first year of online
there
gaming.
You go.
I have a very tight, closet of friends.
One of the guys you met has been on the show before, Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer. Yeah, we've been playing since middle school.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So
yeah,
true friendship is something I've learned about life from.
He came on this show and slandered you mercilessly.
I'm pretending to be his friend. Don't air any of this. You can cut this out, right?
Yeah. So what is something then? A lot of stuff that we've talked about that gaming has taught us has been from stuff that we've gleaned from the past, our older experiences with gaming. So what would be something that you think, Chess, that you've learned or a game has taught you more recently?
So I don't get to play a whole lot of games now. I don't have a whole lot of time, sadly, but one thing did come up recently in a conversation on a podcast I had, that I was talking about playing Zelda and how my tendency in games now, because I don't have a whole lot of time, and is if something kind of difficult comes up, I'll tend to not put in the effort to get past it, to figure it out.
Yeah.
I really want to experience different games and stuff. That's one of my main driving forces behind playing games, is just to kind of sample what's out there. But when I don't know how, I think several of you guys have played, but when I first encountered a Lionel, I had this moment that I had to decide, okay, well, am I going to put in the time to try to figure out how to beat this guy, or not? Now, of course, I know that the way that game is, I had tons of other options and hundreds of other places to go. But for me, it was kind of like, well, this is the first time in the game that I've really faced an enemy that I could not beat after several tries. And after playing through it, the process kind of taught me about like myself and my mentality, that it wasn't just in games that I was this way, that in other areas I was kind of impatient and I didn't really want to dig in and solve a problem. And kind of going through that process, it kind of made me learn about myself, that I've kind of slipped into this mode where I'm like, well, I'll just put this off. I'll have someone else deal with it. I'll hope it goes away.
Stuff like that. Sometimes they just give up. It's true.
Yeah, so it taught me that, I'm an adult, but I still have these tendencies to, kind of skirt around problems. And, and then the process of, getting back into the mode of, all right, I'm doing something wrong. So now I need to systematically figure out what it is I'm doing wrong. Is it my timing? Am I going about it the wrong way? Is there some secret thing that I need to beat this boss? It's like a systematic thing of self-examination and observing my surroundings, all that stuff that's, like we were talking about before with problem solving. And, my kind of realizing that whether I'm in a bad mood or whatever, that I can sometimes be a bad problem solver, and that game kind of brought it to light. And so finally beating the Lionel and then going on to almost immediately then beat a blue Lionel, the next level up, it kind of reaffirmed my my ability to move past problems, which, I don't know, for some people maybe that sounds stupid and trivial, but I think a little self-examination goes a long way.
No, totally.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Lionels are hard, man.
The first one I encountered, I just ran past it. Well, I did try to fight it. I did, and I was like, oh, I can't beat it. Like there was not an ounce of me that was like, I'm supposed to beat it. Maybe that's me just like looking at the game and being like, oh, this is for later.
Yeah.
But there were actually plenty of times in Zelda, and what I love about Zelda in general and Breath of the Wild too is like these simple tasks actually kind of were like. The last 2 bits that I would have to do for a task were always actually really challenging, like getting an ice block into Gerudo Village. I don't know if you ever did that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, I'll get the ice block. This will be easy.
Yeah.
And like, motherfucker, that
was
so
one.
hard. And like, I really wanted to give up several times, but that was one where I did stick through. And I was like, okay, I'm really glad. But basically, if you use like shadow and the sun's moving and there's enemies, you have to drop the ice and fight and then pick the ice back up.
Hard.
And there's another one that this one I never figured out and I really regret was finding the secret code to the Gerudo secret.
You never did?
I couldn't figure out how to do that.
Dummy.
I know.
Could you really not?
No, because you listen to these people talking, and this is like a
you
just
need
a spy
more
mission.
omega-3s or something. You need help.
There's a vent system that you're supposed to go to, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to like go into another room and listen to a vent system. But it's like I don't know how you would have figured that out. How do you figure that out?
You're not a moron, for starters.
It's tricky.
Apparently, you have to have built-in situational awareness.
Yeah, I guess you have to know that.
No, I guess that is actually something that's something different. So that's just a skill that I guess you develop over time, honestly, by playing, or in this particular case, by playing enough games.
Yeah.
There are things, especially with long-running series like The Legend of Zelda, where having a long historical knowledge of that series can significantly help you later on.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily something that you may have learned in that particular game. It's something you learned 10 years ago, and you're like, oh, this is that thing again. They've brought it back.
Yeah.
So it is something that... occasionally it does help to have that long history, and other times maybe it's something that's completely new and your prior knowledge has no bearing on the situation. And learning how to re-access some things that you may have totally forgotten from 1,000 years ago and go, oh, based on what I know of X company and X game series and who worked on this particular one, I think this is that situation again. That is kind of something that you can be aware of for future games as well. So that's definitely one of those more soft skills that you can absorb.
I don't know. I didn't realize there's a vent there.
You
I think it's pretty simple.
Do you want me to
it's a simple
tell it
why I didn't
to
know.
you?
I just didn't realize there was a vent there.
Oh boy. It's right behind her. You can see it behind her.
I know, but I didn't.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Cut some slack, Mom.
Yeah.
I don't think you're right. I'm sorry.
Bad. I think that's how
seems a little tense, a little over.
Someone has to push you to try harder.
I watched it on YouTube.
Ah, there you go.
That's what I did.
Yeah, you find out the way how to do it there.
Yeah.
Problem solving.
Yeah.
Taking all the advances that are available to us today to be able to get past our problems.
There you go.
I like it. So I would say one of the things that and it's not even one game in particular, really, that I would say has really affected me more in doing it, but doing this, the podcast and everything. Like, I can't think of any other. I mean, I've always loved movies and things like that too. And who knows, maybe if I find enough free time, I'll branch off and we can start doing a movie podcast too. But for now, it's like nothing else was really like for me, something that I wanted to step out and be like, I'm going to take the time to produce this own thing and do this own thing about this specific certain subject. And from that, you know, it just taught me the appreciation of it. But then I also, more than that, I think it's to some degree and taught more self-confidence. Like, because honestly, I'm a very introverted person. I do, like, small talk for me is hard. Like, and sometimes we'll go on like trips and like when we'll get in an Uber or something like that, Sam, and if we're with friends, they'll try to like jump in the back seat, so I have to sit in the front seat and be like, you have to talk to them now. Like, no, please God, no. But you know, here's this thing where. And now through part of it, you know, we host this, we do this show every week and we put it out there for the world, which can be also in its own thing, especially with the gaming community, how hot or cold they could be. Yeah. You could be met with tons of derision and criticism and all that, or it could be met with, so far, love. But you know, it's still, there's just this thing of putting it out there and taking something that, you know, but then I think all of us, you know, feel is very special to us and putting it out there and then seeing it do well and being able to keep coming back to it. I normally with anything else, and if it was any other thing, and probably honestly another medium, because I just get to sit and hit this room and talk with you guys, I probably don't know if I would do it. Would have done it and taken the step to do it and throw it out there. But it took finding something that I feel passionate enough to be able to do it, and that just so happened to be games.
Yeah.
Top that, everybody.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
I could honestly go on and on with this.
I know.
There's a zillion and a million things that I
a zillion and a million? Oh, that just sounds...
Editing. Photography and editing were two things I
Thanks,
learned.
Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Snap was one that actually helped with my photography. He was great at judging pictures. He talked about composition. He talked about lighting. You've talked about this
before, I feel like, a long time ago.
And I wasn't going to talk about Pokemon Snap, but that's a good one. Halo, when Halo 3 introduced theater mode. You remember Halo 3 theater mode?
No. Yeah, I remember that.
Where you can make movies and stuff in your gameplay? Oh,
that was a dream come true for me. I literally spent more time in theater mode than the actual game. I would go play campaign missions, and I'd watch myself play the campaign mission. Jeez. I'd watch my character play the campaign mission, and I'd get my camera, and you can do basically, if you are unfamiliar with theater mode, or they have it in Call of Duty and other games now too, but you can basically, it's like you're a developer and you have the detached camera and you can move it wherever you want. You can slow down game time and you can take photos. And
that's badass.
Dude, I took a gazillion photos. I made little movies, and that's where I learned how to edit. The first things I ever edited were Halo things.
And look at you now.
Things.
Look at you now.
I am now a film editor.
Bam!
So there you go.
That's how that all started, was with Halo. Halo saved me.
I have a quick story about that. When I was in high school, some friends of mine, we weren't really friends at the time. We were just put into a class group, and it was one of those, I don't remember what they call it, a life skills class where they, teach you about various slightly useful skills, but
how to balance a checkbook.
But our project was we had to create some kind of presentation on smoking and the dangers of smoking, and the other two guys in the group, they were friends, and they had that mode or some other software that did something similar. And so they had me come up with some statistics and stuff about smoking, and then they went off and they made a video, and it was one of the most hilarious and yet entertaining and educational videos I've ever seen in my life. One of my biggest regrets is I did not save that video on a flash drive, but it was hilarious. Like, one of them was it was something like smoking kills a person every 8 seconds, and so they staged this room with like 4 guys and then one guy running around, and then he would snipe a guy in the head, and then exactly 8 seconds later he would snipe another guy, and then 8 seconds later he would snipe another guy to visualize this. So that was a case where the game was something that allowed us to get into this project, that we learned a lot. To this day, I remember that number, whether it's true or not. It was very educational. And, the whole class loved it. We got an A.
Hell yeah.
And games were a big part of that. Our passion for games and, the passion that drove, those guys to learn how to use it, use that mode, and then to demonstrate it. And, it was something that people could relate to because, everyone liked to play games. So That's my
awesome.
story about that.
That's awesome. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like how it started, you started editing because you did this project and were able to get the good grade on it. But it's just like Rooster Teeth started from doing the exact same thing.
They literally just cropped the HUD. All you could see was the pistol aimer, and they would make little TV episodes.
Shows. And now here Rooster Teeth sits. They've made a full feature film.
Oh, yeah.
They're working on the sequel to it.
It's insane.
They have countless TV, not TV, but web series and stuff that they put out. It's ridiculous. And they still make games, and they make animated shows, and they make anime. It's ridiculous.
Red vs. Blue,
And they still do Red versus Blue.
Yeah.
All because these two guys
really
were
like games.
I really like games, and I want to make a funny TV show out of Halo.
Which is definitely a next level thing. Like, a lot of people don't look at games like, how can I make a TV show out of this and edit it and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that it did inspire those people to do it, and countless others, obviously, it's like there's something to not just Halo, but like just games in general that I think can also inspire people. Maybe to make their own games, which is obviously a big thing that, like, I'm sure none of us, that'd be a good one. Like, none of us make our own games, but if someone was here that makes their own games, that'd be their biggest, like, what have I learned from video games? Like, maybe like how and why to make my own games.
There was a time I wanted to
make your own games,
but then realized there's no way.
But there's still other things that you've done through the media, through the medium that I think you owe to it for inspiring you, like with me and editing. It's like,
this and this podcast, I had to learn. I already knew some of the stuff because I do video as well. It's like I already knew audio recording basics and stuff like that. But it's still been this thing of it's had to get the gear, put the gear, learn how to put it all together. We had to go out, find somebody to make our music for us, and then all the other various things that we've done. And now we're videoing each one, and now we actually have nice lights now and different stuff like that.
Logan's dismay.
I hate the new lights.
But have you seen how well lit we are now?
No, because I'm blind.
Because you don't watch them?
I can't see.
Why do you think I had to get these glasses, you fool?
I'm sorry. But it still just has a big end of it, and it's really cool because and I think now because doing it for me, so how we've all talked about and shared that how our families growing up and our parents especially were a little more strict about it or had different opinions of it and things like that. It's an interesting thing too because it's like now that I've done this, like for my birthday last year, my parents actually bought me the first video game that they ever had. So just in case we have a weird start here because I can't remember what we were talking about before. We had some technical issues. We're back rolling now. Okay, so no, what I was saying is that I think it's really it's an interesting thing that like all of our I remember what it was now. What I was saying is that it was about parents.
Sometimes you just got to get on a roll and then it comes back to
it. The mental thought just comes back. So anyway, no, what I was saying is it's really interesting how all of our parents did have some, obviously, like we were kids, we probably didn't understand, like, no, we need to be responsible, and all that stuff. And when we were playing, like, oh God, don't put those pressures on me to be responsible. I just want to play these games. But, they still like took measures to either, I know I got grounded for playing games so many times. And then, we also had a timer of how long we could play every day. We couldn't play every day. Like it was, all that other stuff.
What kind of dystopian past did you live in?
Write a young adult novel.
Seriously.
Based on it. But still, it's like, it's an interesting thing now that I think doing the podcast and then too, just because of how more mainstream it is, I think it's becoming more accepted. So case in point, I do this now and, there was definitely the time in the past where my parents thought this is just it's a waste of time hobby, does not need to be a part of of how I spend any amount of my time. But now it's like I went to go visit home about a month ago. And while I was there, like, one of the topics of conversation, my dad was like, playing good games lately? And wanted to talk about it.
He's seen them.
I was like, yes.
Well, yes, I am, Dad.
In fact, I do.
I was joking.
I texted you guys about it later because I gave him this perfect 5-minute summary of the storyline of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, you did tell me about that.
I completely was babbling on when I was doing our full review episode. It was so concise. It was so perfect. I was like, damn it. Why couldn't I have done that during the actual show? But then also on that too, like I think it's becoming more now because there are more things that gaming is becoming more mainstream. People of the past who used to think that, oh, this isn't a big deal, this shouldn't be a big thing in people's lives, are beginning to realize that it is. And I think that, not saying we're necessarily the causes of that or anything like
we're on the forefront.
We're a part of it, but we're not the leaders in it. But it's still great that like now it is becoming seen. Like how many billions of dollars to the gaming industry every year.
Yeah.
You know, it's providing viable jobs for people. It's the exact same way that movies are, television shows are. And so it's just great that you know, we're obviously very early on in what we're doing, but it's like we're on that cusp of, you know, riding that wave of glory, of normalcy. You know, plant our flag years from now and be like, you know, this is what it is, and this is gaming, and it's awesome.
You guys are all wrong.
We
can all say I told you so.
Gaming has taught me to stick to my guns.
Yeah.
I did not trust people. Let's say all the negative things.
Well, I mean, to flip it slightly onto the negative side, as you know, as part of all this and seeing it growing and, you know, learning all these things from video games, the one thing that it does have to learn, and that we do have to learn, we have yet to the community as a whole. Yes, in fact, do you have a minute to talk about it? But like a big part of it is still the community is big, the community is growing. There are a lot of great people out there, but like what you alluded to earlier, Mogan, there are a lot of people who are not, and there are a lot of people who are purely on there to be toxic and to, you know,
poison the water supply.
Exactly. Like, I have not obviously experienced near to the level of what you've come across, I'm sure, in the gaming. But I can only think of one time that it's really happened, and it happened because it happened like 2 days ago. I was playing Overwatch again. Happiness, it can provide such happiness, but also such sadness. But we were playing this one round, and it was just not going well. And these three guys who were on there as a team decided that they were going to switch from their private party chat to the team chat to just harass everybody, just like saying, "Man, you guys suck. I'm looking at your profile. You main that guy, like you suck," and all this other stuff. And the thing is I was like, you know what? If things aren't going your way, complain. Like that. I mean, don't complain, or don't complain. Offer up a help, a suggestion. Like, be like, hey, instead of just charging in blindly as Genji, why don't you try flanking or going around over here? Or why don't hey,
this is a little better.
Like, better, right? I would, if they called me a piece of shit at the end, I would take it. But at least they gave me constructive criticism. Kind of thing, you know? So it's like the games have taught us so much, but we still have so much
taught
yet
us
to
humility.
Learn.
Yes,
that's true. In spades. I would love to think I'm great at For Honor, but I am not. I am not at all. Got my ass handed to me many a time earlier today.
I feel like a much more valuable skill that I've learned from gaming is how to laugh at one's own self.
Yeah.
I can't even count the number of times I've just straight up fallen off the map from being dumb, and it's like, whoops-a-doodles. That's my bad.
Yeah, I definitely have had moments when I'm playing competitively and I do terrible and I disappoint everyone on my team, and I'm very much like controller down, head in my hands. I'm like,
crying, soft tears.
I tell everyone on my team, like, I'm sorry that I suck, but I promise I'm going to do better. And like in other aspects of life, it's very easy to be like, I suck, I'm not going to try again. But there's something about gaming, and that's maybe the fun factor, the addicting factor, whatever it is like, I want to keep trying. I want to keep going. And that has transferred into my life in a positive way of like the resilience to try again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's one thing that is really interesting is how there's been educational video games for years, but it's only kind of recently that people have started to realize how to make them effective and still fun.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a revolution now going on with bringing games into classrooms, and it's because there's a lot of evidence that games are extremely good at teaching things in many, many different dimensions. And one of the dimensions is exactly what you're talking about, is in school, if you take a test and you're a kid and you do bad on that test and you get your grade back, the message to you is, well, you're not good at this, right?
Right.
But in a game, if you set up a game to teach the material and to assess the material, and they've shown this, is that students, they are much more likely to, instead of rebounding off of bad feedback and resigning themselves to failure, they immediately turn around and say, well, what can I do better next time? And they'll try again and again and again and again until they get it right. And that's just one of the ways that games have found to be extremely valuable tools for education when they're done properly.
Right.
And and it's really exciting to see what's going to be coming up in the future for games in classrooms and games for training. There's tons and tons of companies now that do their corporate training through games, and it's because it's really effective. If you know what you're doing, you can engage people and get people involved and get them interested in spending time and invest themselves into doing things that normally people just consider boring and bounce off of.
That's awesome. Yeah. And especially too, like there's so many different ways that could be, later on or implemented more, especially with augmented reality or virtual reality, the types of training applications that could have, since you mentioned that, it's a great point because, especially for, as obviously I don't think the technology's there, but still quite yet, but still the promise of, if it's a heavy machinery job or something like that, where you don't have to actually take them out to the machine where they could either cause harm to themselves, property, or somebody else, you can have them be like, all right, here, you're going to sit in the simulator, you're going to learn how to do this thing. And that's been a thing already with like trucking and farming. I mean, not to the same extent, actually sitting in the cockpit,
isn't
but
one
still.
of the newer VR games like Forklift Simulator? And it's like, oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
Now I know how to do a forklift.
That is one of those games.
I can go out onto any construction site around here and do that in my sleep.
One of them is Star Trek Bridge Crew, so you can learn how to fly the Enterprise.
So applicable to regular life.
Soon it will be.
The point I'm making.
It will be. I'm not saying it's here today.
Nothing is here now.
I'm saying it could be. And don't you want to be the first one to be like, I can fly the Enterprise?
Yeah, actually, that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty
cool. You can do that if such a thing exists.
When it does.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think I like personally this topic, like Zach was saying, we could just keep finding all these different areas and angles. But is there any other like specific things that anybody has, like one more thing for me? That
just
anybody,
one like not get into it, but like just. Like
well, no, we can get into it a little bit, but just like one more thing that you feel like gaming has taught you, you've learned from it, or changed you in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even touched on RPGs and in character investment and like morality in games and how that can reflect into real life. I've told that Fallout 4 anecdote twice, I think, on this podcast where I
summarize it. Quick.
I saved someone and he wasn't thankful and I found him again and I murdered him. And I really felt twisted up about it. And I was like, why did I do that? No. Bad. I really did. I felt bad about it. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting moral choice that obviously has pretty much very little, consequence in real life, obviously, but also kind of in the game, like no one found out or blah, blah, blah. But
so really, you learned how to get away with crimes.
I did.
That's what you learned.
Did ABC television show.
I think I just learned that with RPGs specifically, you can get a tremendous amount of investment in those games into your character, and like you are that character. And so when I did that, I was like, I like told people about it. Like that was something I told people for like the next week. I was like, man, listen to this story, and like, isn't that weird? Like most people were like, who cares? But I was like,
but it happened and it's cool.
Yeah, well, it happened, and it was just like that was a choice I made. And choices are something that doesn't exist in novels or movies in the sense that you don't get to make the choice. There's obviously choices being made, but you don't get to make that choice. And in video games, you get to make all these choices. And so, video game morality. You could have maybe a philosophy class on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's something there.
Let's start that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's go into it right now.
That's our next venture.
Morality. Could have like little pipes.
Make a curriculum.
Corn cup pipes.
Corn cup pipes. I do say.
Let me get out my monocle, good sir.
Yeah. So what about you, Chess? You got anything else that you think they've taught you?
Well, I kind of just wanted to reiterate, a thread that I think I mentioned multiple times, but I think it's important is a lot of people are gamers and, they don't really think that means a whole lot. But I think that if people out there, listeners, they go back through their lives and they think about, the influences on their life and the things that they've learned through games, that they can be fairly significant. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can almost always tell when I meet someone and they're a gamer, after a little while, because I've noticed that, gamers, there's many different kinds of games, but one of the common threads is that gamers have like a certain way of solving problems and stuff that if you're a gamer, you can kind of recognize. And, I think that games have been more important in your life than maybe you realize and have given you valuable skills that you may not realize. a couple of years ago, there was someone who was initially ridiculed, and now it's actually being accepted more, that he put on his resume that he was a guild leader for World of Warcraft. And, people laughed him in at first, but then when they started breaking down the fact that a guild leader, they need to coordinate. And actually, I read a book about this that I don't think got a lot of attention, but another guy actually broke it down how in a guild, and especially a competitive guild with raids and stuff, you have to have extremely good leadership skills and personal skills, because it's not like a normal leadership position in a job where you can fire someone or whatever. Every one of your employees, every one of your raid people has the option at any moment to go to someone else. So the only way you can attract talent is with your leadership skills. There's no other way you can attract people. But anyway, all those, like this guy, when he started talking about it, everyone thought it was a joke. And now Forbes magazine and all these other outlets have started saying, hey, yeah, these games, they teach you these skills. If you're working with people and coordinating these things, that is not just analogous, but it's a direct comparison to real life skills. And a lot of people, they might have those exact skills or similar skills, and they may not realize it because they've been taught their whole lives that video games are a waste of time. So I really encourage people to challenge that thought and to see what happens. I know it's done wonders for me.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
excellent.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
I want to
Monologue.
Everybody put that on your resume.
Play the music,
Put
the
it on
slow
my
push
resume.
in.
Be like, that is what that's going to get me places. My gaming experience. That's pretty badass. I mean, that's a pretty solid point right there.
Yeah, that's
Just
great.
Another way, and it will be interesting to see more as as games become more accepted. How these other uses, because like who would have thought that you could put Guild Wars leader on your resume and that would actually work. You know, it's like one of those. It's almost be something that you would put in the thing, like the questionnaire, just like the side note of I play games on the side kind of thing. But to actually have the real life applicableness is pretty sweet.
Yeah,
That's
that's awesome.
Cool. That's pretty cool. I don't know. That seems like a pretty solid point to end on. Like, I don't know how much more. Like, that was a great point.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more we can add to that. So I'll go ahead and do the song contest real quick, and then we'll do our close. So I have a hint for everybody. Get ready. It's a toughie. Hint is no, that's not the hint. The hint is heroes never die.
Oh, come on.
Hey.
Because you're being all like judgmental about it.
Yeah, he said it was a
I
toughie
told
sarcastically.
you, it's a toughie,
Yeah.
sarcastically. But the hint is
Asterisks or
heroes
whatever.
never die. So stick around to the end of this episode where I'll put in the song for you all to listen to. And remember, the song contest goes live at Wednesday, 9 a.m. the day after this episode airs. First person to correctly guess the song by either replying to the Facebook post, the Twitter post, or writing it in the comments on YouTube will get to send us a song and hint for a future episode. So get ready. Wednesday, 9 a.m. the day after this episode goes live. July 5th, my birthday. So give me a good present. But anyway, Chess, it has been awesome having you on the show. I really loved this topic. It created a lot of great conversation. I think the conversation, like I said, that was one of the foundations of why we wanted to start this podcast. And so it was great to have you on to be able to really bring that conversation and to bring to light these new things and the way that games are impacting and teaching people every day. So it was awesome having you on.
Yeah, and could you remind us before you go, just restate the name of your podcast and when it's coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. So the show it's called +7 Intelligence, and you'll be able to find it in all the major podcasting locations pretty soon. Right now, or when this is first heard, you might have to search for it in iTunes and stuff. But on my website, +7intelligence.com, I'll have a teaser trailer up and some more info. Soon I'll be getting some subscribe links and stuff like that, probably by the time this airs. And the show actually launches officially on the 17th of July, so not too far from now. And
17.
yeah, I'm
17. Plus
Oh, yeah, that's
that's a good,
nice.
And 7/17/17. I insisted on that, and
I demanded myself.
I demanded of myself.
I'm really excited about it. There'll be a lot of conversations similar to this. I really want to kind of dig down into what games really mean to people. So so Plus 7 Intelligence, the best place right now is plus7intelligence.com. And you can look for this logo. Can you see that?
Ooh, fancy.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Whoa, you got
Very-
business cards?
Wow. Oh, it's only one S. The more you know.
Yes, my name is Chess, and it sounds like the game, but it's not spelled by the game. I did not come up with this name.
I did not come up with this name.
It was
I filed complaints with my parents' complaint department. Still waiting to get back on those.
Still waiting.
But so that's the show, and I had an absolute blast. I'm just starting to get these ideas out and see what people think about them, and I really appreciate the warm reception, and I really appreciate your guys' show for broaching these topics sometimes and treating games a little bit more seriously, and but still having a good time. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on again. It's been great. Well, that concludes this episode of Team Chat Podcast. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Arrivederci.
To my left, Zachary Parks. And our special guest today, Chess Hall. Thanks for coming on again, man.
Adios, guys.
All right. We'll see you all next time. Stick around for the song.